Today we're discussing the proper hose assembly methods for Parker's 540P hose, or CO208, using the Parker MiniCrimp. Once the overall length of the assembly has been determined, we need to get a good, clean, square cut on the end of the hose assembly. Several different tools out there for that. Today I'm just using basically a glorified PVC cutter. Which works fine for this particular type of hose. You want to avoid any type of abrasion tool, if you will, or electric cutter. You don't want anything that's going to generate heat. It will melt the end of the tube and cause problems. So just something good and sharp. PVC cutters are very economical and a good way to go. Once we've got a good, clean, square cut, no burrs, no real frays from the braiding material, anything along those lines, proper insertion depth is critical. The actual dimension is 1 9/16. A quick, easy way to do it, though, is to hold the hose up next to the fitting. There's a small perforated ring around the top of the fitting just below the hex. If you hold the hose right up against there and put a mark on the hose at the base of the crimp shell, then when the fitting is being installed onto the hose is being pushed in, you'll have a good visual indicator showing you that this hose is in fact inserted all the way into the fitting. That is critical. One of the common failures of hose assemblies is not inserting the hose all the way into the fitting. It doesn't get a good crimp and the fitting can blow off. So we want to ensure a good, clean, square cut as well as the proper insertion depth. So once overall length has been determined, hose has been cut, good, clean, and square, fitting is fully installed onto the hose. The Parker MiniCrimps that we are providing come with a Interpack hand pump. There's a triangular wing nut here. Clockwise and tighten down, just hand tight, does not need to be wrench tight. We'll engage the pump. Counterclockwise releases the pressure and the cylinder will retract. On the tops of the cylinders, the black portion here is the pusher. It does pop off of the cylinder with a little effort. And the die is inside. The Parker dies are specific to hose size and series of fittings. We don't have to spend a lot of time on that. You guys are crimping one hose and one size only, so really you only need one die. But briefly, all the Parker dies are color-coded per size. So for 1/2 inch or a number 8 hose, the die is going to be blue. And then they stamp the part number in the top of the die. So for this particular hose and this series fittings, we are using a P08 die. They are sectional dies, but they are chained together. So we don't have to worry about losing one of the sections or anything along those lines. So to install the die into the crimper, simply put them all together and form a circle, reach in, drop it into the machine. Good little wiggle, push down on the dies, they kind of self-align in there. Reinstall the pusher back on the cylinder. It goes on a little easier than it comes off. And the silver die ring goes directly on top of the die. So once you have all that together, push down on the silver die ring, and if you look inside, you'll have a nice circle where the fitting is going to be crimped. If one of the dies is misaligned, when you push down, it should align itself. If not, you can wiggle it a little bit to get it into place. Did want to cover quickly, there's 2 different fittings being provided. One of them is a number 10 female JIC or female flare. The other one is a number 8 female JIC or female flare. So even though one of them is a number 10, one of them is a number 8, they're both being crimped on 1/2 inch hose. So you do not require a different die. Either one of those fittings can be crimped with the same die. So, just to recap quickly, overall length has been determined, hose has been cut, clean, square cut on the end. We have a visual indicator from where we marked it, so we know that this fitting is fully installed on the hose. We're going to tighten the T-handle here clockwise to engage the pump. We're going to push the fitting up through the die. The Parker dies have a small notch on the bottom. This is going to allow you to, when you push the fitting up into the die, pull down just slightly. You do not want to pull hard. You don't want to pull the hose out of the fitting. Pull down slightly and the fitting will catch on that lip. That way you know you have proper positioning of this fitting in the die. So, going to push the hose up through the die, pull down slightly and it'll catch right on that lip and stop. Once we put some tension on the die, it will hold the fitting in place and you don't have to continue holding the hose while you're pumping the machine. It takes about 20 pumps to get this fully crimped. You're going to want to pump it until the silver die ring bottoms out or pushes all the way down to the base of the crimper. You don't want any gap there. So it starts to get a little tight there at the end. So once it is all the way down, again, silver die ring is now touching the base of the crimper. Counterclockwise turn on the valve here. Wiggle it around a little bit, it should pull right out. The dies in this machine need to be very well lubricated. If they're not, the die will seize up in the machine and it'll greatly reduce the life of the crimper as well as the die. But the outside of the die, as well as in between each one of the segments and the bowl here in the crimper, need to be well lubricated. Since you're only crimping one size hose, you won't have to be changing dies out a lot, so you don't have to be handling these greasy dies, so please just really lubricate the heck out of it. It'll give you a much smoother, cleaner crimp as well. Once the assembly has been made, the fitting's been crimped on there, you need to mic the outside of the fitting to ensure that you have the proper crimp. So you want to do it on the smooth spots of the fitting. It does make little ribs from each little section of the die here, so you don't want to take that measurement on those raised ribs. You want it on the flat portion. So if you take a pair of calipers, check it in 2 spots real quick. This one came out just right. It should be 0.84 through 0.86. Anywhere on or between those numbers will be fine, and you know that you have the proper crimp. There are different end configurations available. I know we touched on this briefly, but on this hose, it's got a number 10 female JIC. You guys also get them in a number 8 female JIC, but they do make 90s male pipe fittings. Several different end configurations for this hose. And again, you would use the same crimp die regardless of that end configuration. It's determined by the hose size. Hopefully this is helpful, and if you have any questions at all, feel free to contact us here at Palm Beach Hose and Fittings and we can walk you through the assembly procedure. Thank you.